Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I hope you're all well and welcome back to another Feed podcast with your host Shabbir. And very excited for this one. Why? Because we are welcoming back a previous guest of ours, and actually it's because of your demands and your comments, mashallah. In the comments, we've had a few requests to bring this particular guest back. This is only, by the way, the second time that we've reintroduced a repeat guest. First one was Sheikh Hasib Noor, I believe, and this time we have the pleasure of welcoming back our dear Ustadh Asim Khan. Assalamu alaikum wa
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, Sheikh?
Jazakallah khair for inviting me back.
Alhamdulillah, it's good to have you back. It's definitely
Likewise.
good to have you back. We had you on episode 6, I believe. Completely different, because that one we discussed like Arabic language and studying abroad in Egypt, etc. It's interesting because I remember I messaged you as well recently, because I went to an event, and one brother pulled me to the side at the event, and I've never met him before. It was outside of London, and he was like, I just want to say Jazakallah khair, thank you so much. And I was like, oh, why? And he said, I listened to your podcast with Ustadh Asim, and the moment I heard it, I basically made my mind up that I want to study abroad in Egypt. I booked my tickets.
Wow.
I went out there for a few months, and now I know Fusha, Arabic.
MashaAllah.
And I was like, wow, subhanAllah. I was like, what? You're telling me that it was just by listening to the episode? He's like, yeah, it motivated me to do something. So I was like, wow, alhamdulillah, that's so amazing. And obviously it shows that, inshallah, there is benefit. And thank you to our viewers and listeners as well, mashallah, that they've taken the initiative to actually take these tips on board. And
one of my teachers would say that good words are like raindrops. You never know where one is going to land.
Yeah.
So he said, basically try to say as many good things in your life as possible. You don't know the effect it will have and where it will land.
Especially with social media. You can say something good and it can just spread to different parts of the world, subhanAllah, and it can affect people in such a positive way.
Alhamdulillah.
It's amazing, alhamdulillah. But yeah, it's good to have you back. And so like I said, last one was about Arabic and studying. Today's one's going to be a bit different, let's just say, right?
Different is a good word, yeah.
Let's say it's going to be definitely quite different. So for those of you who don't know, obviously, Ustadh Asim is he's an imam, as well as he's an advisor for the Islamic Council of Europe, where he deals with a lot of marriage reconciliation issues. So we're going to kind of discuss that and tap into that today. It's a huge thing. Marriage, of course, is something that is always spoken about, but then we have the other side to it as well, which is, unfortunately sometimes there can be conflicts within the marriage, and people, they don't know who to turn to a lot of the times, and then they would use services like yourself, Sheikh, and they'd come to the Imam to kind of seek some advice. So inshallah, today we thought we'd speak about this in the episode, but I wanted to do something very different that we've never done before.
Okay.
On the show today, right? Which I haven't fully prepped you for. What we're planning to do is something which I'm going to call the not so quickfire round. Okay, because it's not quickfire because that would be like a yes or no.
Okay.
But because the questions are a bit more detailed, we'll give you a bit of time to kind of answer it. Is that all right? Inshallah.
Yeah,
It's all going to be to do with marriage, by the way. So for those of you wondering what this is going to be about, it's all questions to do with marriage, hot topics, things that people speak about a lot today. So I don't know how this is going to go. Let's see. Are you ready, Sheikh?
Yeah.
Okay, so the not so quickfire round. It's the first time we're trying it ever. After all these episodes in. First question to do with marriage is, can the younger sibling get married before the older sibling gets married?
Okay, so is this to do with you?
No, it's not.
Okay, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Technically, no. There's no order set in the Sharia about, siblings getting married.
Yeah.
But my advice is, if it can be done in a way that everyone is happy and everyone's marriage is done in a way that is appropriate, then why not? Because it would make your parents happy, it would make the family happy. The problem is when it comes to extremes, and people are left in the lurch for many years just because, the person above, sister or brother, just doesn't want to get married. That's a problem.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, brilliant. That is a very common question, by the way. That's asked a lot of the times because like you said, there is an ideal way of doing things, but there are many cases where the younger sibling is kind of just left, waiting, like they're ready or proposal has come, but then because of these kind of because this order that's in place, maybe based on culture, it's like no, you have to wait. So they wait 2-3 years, and then obviously that can lead to further problems, isn't
I've
it?
seen extreme cases. I mean, there's someone who is almost in his 40s.
Really?
Almost in his
Wow.
40s, yeah. I mean, this is such a nice person, religious
Subhanallah.
person, good family, but they're just really stuck on that thing. You can't unless your older sibling gets married first, and
Wow.
that's a huge problem.
I actually had a message recently on Instagram from a sister who basically asked a similar question,
Yeah,
and basically turned around and said, she basically came clean and said, look, I've been dating a guy for 3 years. I've been in a haram relationship, and that's only the case because my parents have said no, because my older sibling isn't yet married. So it's like, you know, though it's not the right way of going about things, but then at the same time there has to be some sort of help from the other side, you know, to make the situation easier. But anyway, that was the first question. Let's move on to question 2, which is, can you get married to someone who's basically outside of your culture?
So again, technically yes,
Yeah.
and it is advisable to seek someone who's of a similar social status and understanding. That's the fuqaha mentioned this as well, and many times a person who's part of the same culture, you don't realize this. You think you've been born and brought up in the UK, so you know you're cosmopolitan. You don't have much cultural baggage, but you do. You do. You're very cultural. Your food it needs to be in a particular way. Your dress sense, you know, your habits, they are all very much defined by culture. Maybe not to the same extent as your parents, but when you get married and to someone who's from another culture, that becomes apparent straight away. So the problem here is that technically, yes, you can, so long as you don't expect your wife, who's from another culture, to become, let's say, Pakistani, or your parents don't expect her to become Pakistani, and she doesn't expect you to become maybe Gujarati, for example. Yeah. If you don't have that expectation, then go ahead and get married. But you need to have a long, hard think about that. You know, are you okay with somebody remaining on their culture? And if that answer is yes, fine. But many times people struggle with this, so we always advise try to get married to someone within your culture. If not, there's nothing wrong with then looking outside, so long as with this understanding.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, sound advice there. Moving on to question number 3, which is a common kind of misconception, we could say. Is an arranged marriage the same as a forced marriage? Because, you know, some people might have this idea that maybe we should define both as well, I guess.
I suppose everyone's had that experience where they're talking to a non-Muslim colleague.
Yeah.
And they're like, so how did you get married? And you're like, oh, it was arranged. And their face drops like, oh my God.
Yeah. So you met her.
You must be so unhappy. So, arranged marriage basically means that you don't date before you get married to this person. And perhaps the person that you chose to get married to was suggested to you by your parents or family. The benefit of that is your parents, they know who you are. They also have the experience, and they suggest people that they think are best suited for you. Then you have a series of meetings, ask questions, and if you're satisfied that this is the right person, you go ahead and get married. That's what you call an arranged marriage. Obviously, a forced marriage is one where it's against your will. Whether it's from your family, whether it's not from your family, you don't want to get married to this person, but despite you not wanting to, it's forced upon you. So there's a big difference between the two.
No, but you mentioned the important part of the arranged side of things, which is that there is a series of meetings. It's not the fact that, like, because a lot of people think, oh, you have no idea who you're getting married to. You're going to see them on the day, and you're going to find out what their name is on the day when you sign the contract. And see their name or something. But it's not like that, right? Like, there is a way of getting to know about that person, getting to know who you're getting married to, in other words, who you're committing your life to, right?
There is, even the Prophet ﷺ, he advised the person who's getting married to look at the person of interest to see whether there is attraction there. It's very interesting because we all know the hadith of the Prophet when he said that a woman is married for 4 reasons, and then the last of them was her religiosity. And that one we know to be the most important as well. We'll speak about that maybe later on. But Imam Ahmad has an interesting saying. He says that first a person should check for attraction and then religiosity. So beauty comes first and then the religion comes second. And it's almost as if it's in conflict with the famous hadith, but it's not. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah was saying that because if you ask about a girl, let's say, and you find out that she's religious, maybe she prays 5 times a day and she dresses modestly, and then you say, okay, let's have a meeting, and you see that you're not attracted to her. Now you would have declined someone knowing that they are religious as well. You would have declined a religious person. So Imam Ahmad saying, if you flip that around and say, hang on, first, don't tell me about her religiosity, but would I be attracted to her? And if the answer is yes, and then the next step is what? She's also religious, you're going to marry her now.
Interesting.
So it's a very wise statement, but I think it does highlight the importance of getting married to someone that you are attracted to.
Definitely. Okay, interesting stuff. And the final, we'll leave it at this, the final, because we have so much to discuss. Bringing a bit of heat and spice to this conversation, which is that can a man get married for the second time in secret without telling his first wife?
Yes, so this is the part I get in trouble, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
It's actually a growing trend I've noticed in certain communities, where there's a person, he's married for quite a long time, maybe 20 years with children, then goes ahead and gets a second marriage, but in secret.
Right.
And they often ask this question, that is it permissible? The answer that I give is that technically that marriage is valid even if you didn't tell your first wife, but I would highly advise against that for a number of reasons. One of them is that the life that you're going to now live is a double life, and in order to maintain it, you're going to have to tell 1,000 lies. So the nikah may be valid, but those lies are totally haram. You think about that. How many times are you going to be away and then explain to your first wife, oh, actually it was about this, when in fact when it was about that? So you're trapped in a web of lies. The other reason is because usually those marriages don't last, and the person not only loses his first wife, and perhaps the children turn against him, but also the second wife may see that, well, he wasn't very trustworthy when it came to his first wife. So what then about me? Yes, I'm going to be of less significance than the first one. So if a person is going to do this, we advise them, do it openly and do it properly, and then the decision is this.
But it's important to clarify that, obviously, so from a legal point of view, it's valid. The nikah is valid. But then what we're saying is, like, morally, it's wrong. Because obviously...
It's a technicality. It's like saying, it's a bit of a crude example, but horse manure is not najis according to Sharia. It's not impure. That doesn't mean you should sit on a pile of horse poo.
Of course.
Do you get it? So looking at things technically is a very narrow-minded way of making big decisions like this.
And like you said, it's a double life, and obviously it can cause a lot of problems down
Huge
the line.
problems. We see it every day. It's and the first wife, she goes crazy, basically, understandably. But it's not just that she then demands a divorce. It's that the whole family turn against you, and your own children are caught up in the middle.
Well,
your children are caught up in the middle. Some of them, they're young adults now. And that type of trauma that's created may have repercussions on them later on in their lives. And you're going to be responsible for that. You're going to be responsible for that. So it's something very complicated. Think about it properly.
Said it's a growing trend. Why do you think that is? Why is that a growing trend for?
I think it's a growing trend because of the fact that the world has become a small village. So a lot of these brothers, when they get married a second time, they'll go to places like Morocco or other countries. And because they're getting married outside of the culture is not as uncommon, or there's no stigma attached to it, they can easily get married again. And it's almost like every now and again they'll go to this country, spend time with their second wife, and then come back. And they romanticize it like that. But the reality on the ground is quite different. So I think because easy access, because traveling, because of low-cost airlines, perhaps, this type of lifestyle has become a bit more accessible. There may be obviously other reasons as well. Perhaps that people are not as happy as they wish they could be in a marriage, and that's a big discussion in and of itself. People's expectations of what marriage is supposed to be like. If you been born and brought up on Bollywood movies, and then the day comes for your marriage, you've got a big expectation as to what you want to get, what you expect from this marriage. The other thing is that when you don't get it, and when the romance isn't as wonderful as you imagined, and the love begins to fade, the fact that we live in such a sexualized society, and the fact that mixing with other people is so easy at work, on the street, online, on social media. There's a recipe of disaster that's created, which is that I believe that I should have a romantic, loving marriage. That's my expectation.
Yeah.
And at the same time, not only am I not getting it, but I'm kind of getting something similar from my work colleague. Or online, this person showing interest in me. And don't I deserve to be someone who's loved, to have happiness, etc., etc.? And the shaitan just comes along and takes big time advantage of that. And you find yourself in a haram relationship. You find yourself being unfaithful. And unfortunately, that is a growing trend. I'm seeing that as an imam. I'm seeing that as someone who works in a Sharia council. And it's really devastating, because you'd think, okay, maybe it's brothers, right, being unfaithful. I probably think that it's equal for sisters as well. And they're not, people that are far away from the religion. They're people that are practicing, that pray, that cover up, etc., etc. And they end up doing, really, really horrendous things where they're having affairs. And you're thinking to yourself, what happened there? How did you go down that path? And again, it comes down to, why did you get married in the first place? And this is an important point. I think a lot of people, they struggle to understand this. If you stood in Oxford Street and asked 100 people, what's a good reason to get married? People will come with answers like, because you're in love, for romance, for companionship, maybe to avoid being lonely. A lot of people suffer from loneliness. And just to avoid being lonely,
You just want some companionship.
they just want someone in life. And all those reasons, though they're not negative or bad, that's not the reason why the Prophet ﷺ told us to get married. So it's very interesting. He said in an authentic hadith, النكاح من سنتي فمن لم يعمل بسنتي فليس مني, that marriage is from my tradition, and whoever turns away from my tradition, I have nothing to do with him. And the other hadith, that إذا تزوج العبد فقد استكمل نصف الدين, that when a slave gets married, he completes half of his religion. Yes, which is a disputed hadith, but the meaning, I'm sure we all know about it. And some scholars said is authentic as well. It really does give us a different perspective of marriage, because the Prophet in both hadiths is saying that marriage is a religious decision, supposed to benefit you religiously, as if to say marriage is supposed to make you into a better Muslim, can help you complete your faith, your next step towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you got married on the basis that I'm doing it to become a better Muslim, not just because I want a loving romantic relationship with somebody else, even though I do want those things, but this is the main underlying reason. Later on, when the love fades, it goes up and down, and somebody else shows you interest, maybe at work, you're going to be like, I got married to stop myself doing these kind of things. I got married to protect myself from zina. Why then am I going to entertain, advances of other people? I got married for this very reason. Do you see? But if you got married for love and romance, then this becomes a lot more difficult to say no to. So getting married for the right reasons is super important.
I think so. One thing you mentioned, which is that living in a overly or hypersexualized society, that is obviously clearly having an effect on people. So, this romanticized idea of almost like, I don't know, from this is not the case always, of course not, but with brothers, for example, when it comes to marrying again, then it's feeding into this whole idea of, sometimes they use even the deen to justify. So one thing I don't know if you agree with this, but sometimes, like, I've spoken about it before, where some brothers are like, right, no, I'm doing it because it's a sunnah. So I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, we're not denying that the Prophet ﷺ married, multiple times, but so is, for example, being good to your spouse, helping out at home. All of these things are from the sunnah, but because they're not as appealing, we only use the sunnah when it suits us. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
But people use quotations from the Quran and Sunnah for their own benefit all the time, both sides, men and women. But I think the fact is that no one can dispute that having a happy marriage means a happy life. Having a happy marriage means that you become a stable, more productive individual. And the opposite of that, one brother, subhanAllah, recently is going through marriage problems. I think he's been separated from his wife for, I think, coming up to a few months now. Really struggling. He's almost on the verge of depression. And he said that, there's only 2 times in my life right now that I feel relaxed. Number 1, when I'm sleeping, and number 2, when I'm praying. Because, when you have a problem in your marriage, it permeates into a problem at work, in the masjids, with friends. Everything just becomes tainted, because the home is that one place we need to find relaxation, calmness. And if that is a problem area, it just spills out into every other part of your life. That's why marriage is, is super important, to be clear on how you need to invest in it, how much effort you need to put into it, and how you need to maintain it. And I think maintenance of a marriage is where people, they need some help and guidance.
Yeah, I remember hearing once, going to the story with Aisha radhiallahu anha. I remember when there was this incident of the ifk, this fabrication, this lie that was made against her. And I remember, hearing from a sheikh once, he was saying that, during that time she felt quite ill.
Yeah.
And she obviously had no idea what was going on. So for about a month, she was at home and she was quite ill. And obviously the Prophet ﷺ knew, what the people were saying and what the Medinas were talking about at the time. And the Shaykh mentioned an interesting point. He was like, how the hadith mentions how Prophet ﷺ would come, just ask her how she's doing, and that was it. Like, even Aisha mentions he wasn't the same as he would normally be with me. So he was saying that the reason why she felt quite ill and not the same was because she suspected from the Prophet ﷺ that in terms of their relationship, in terms of their marriage, things weren't the same. So his point was basically like, it has an effect. When the husband is down, the wife is going to be down, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite a profound point that he mentioned.
It is. I mean, look, the Prophet ﷺ, he is the strongest, toughest, most resilient person this world has ever seen. Yet Allah began and ended his mission with a woman by his side, which is phenomenal. If you think about when he stumbled out the cave, received revelation for the first time, he was shook. He was really, لَقَدْ خَشِيتُ عَلَى نَفْسِي, he said to his wife, I fear for myself, I think I've gone mad.
Yeah.
But the first person he went to in his most difficult moment wasn't his bestie. It wasn't somebody else.
Yeah.
It was his wife, Khadija. Zammiluni, cover me up. She covered him up, she consoled him, she gave him words that reassured him. She took him to her cousin Waraqah, who affirmed that you become a prophet of God. And that helped him. And then fast forward the last days of his life, going through the pangs of death, in and out of consciousness with a fever. Who is he with? His then wife Aisha, sitting in her lap, in one narration in her arms. And that is how he left this worldly abode, with a woman in the beginning and at the end, as if to say that if he, despite being so tough and strong and resilient, was made better with a woman by his side, what then about the rest of us? And I think this is why I don't like when brothers, they joke around a lot about marriage, even sisters as well. The marriage is always the butt of the joke, Either it's about, brothers needing to get a visa to go for chicken and chips, or sisters talking about dark rain clouds, talking about their husbands. It's fair enough you enjoy, even in a nikah, okay? Yeah. I did a little speech and I mentioned the importance of not being so negative about marriage. Okay? And the guy came on after me. I don't think he was listening, because the first thing he said was, I heard that there's a hadith that whoever gets married completes half of their religion. As for me, I was completely finished.
Oh my God.
That's exactly what I was saying. Don't do that. A bit of fun and joke is fine, but nowadays marriage is often spoken about in a very negative way. Ball and chain, you're tied down. Are you sure you want to do this? But for the Prophet ﷺ, the year that Khadija passed away is dubbed as Am al-Huzn, the year of sorrow.
Yeah.
And the companion said that after he buried her, he wasn't seen smiling for months on end. That's what his marriage meant to him. And he loved her so much that in later years, his then wives Aisha and others, they would become so jealous because he would keep talking about her. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, she said, I've never been so jealous of one of his co-wives as I am about Khadija, even though I never saw her. She never even got to see Khadija. And in one narration, she says that, I said to him unkind words about Khadija, something to the effect of, Allah's given you someone much better, someone younger, more fertile, why don't you let go? And the Prophet, she said that his face changed colour and he became angry, and he said, Allah never replaced me with someone better. When I first came and I told people to believe, they said, Kadhabta, you're a liar. And she said, no, you're a man of truth. And I never put my mouth after that day about Khadija. This is a halal type of jealousy. But there's another narration. I remember reading this narration. It reduced me to tears, because I've never heard about a love like this. It's the narration about Allahumma hala. So Khadija, she had a sister whose name is Hala. And many years after Khadija has passed away, Aisha says that Hala, she visited us. She came and I was sitting in front of the Prophet inside our home. Hala, she knocked and she asked permission to come inside. And the Prophet ﷺ, I saw that he got up, his face irtaha became lit up, and he said, Allahumma Hala, oh Allah, it's Hala. She says, I became so jealous because I knew that just hearing the voice of her sister made him so happy. The voice of the sister of Khadija made the Prophet so happy because it reminded him of Khadija. What type of love is this?
Yeah.
You know, this is the type of love that people.
This is not the type of love that you're going to see on social media, the overly romanticized, stuff, right? This is like,
this
people,
is true.
yeah, this is real love. Yeah, exactly. It's real love. One thing I was going to ask you, I know we haven't got to the main kind of point of discussion yet, but since you mentioned it, so you mentioned how marriage is seen as something negative nowadays, right? And you also mentioned earlier on, like, if you were to stand in Oxford Street, for example, or in a busy shopping mall and ask people, 100 people about marriage, what they would say. I feel like today, even amongst Muslims, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, that people are starting to kind of lose sight of the importance of marriage, the institution of marriage. So if you ask someone, they're like, well, I love someone, so what's a paper going to do? What's Mr. and Mrs. going to do? Like, if I love someone, even Muslims, like, I've heard them say, like, I don't need to get married.
Wow.
And it comes back to, obviously, we know it's an act of worship, it's completing half of your deen, but why do you think that is, and what would you respond to someone who, for example, says, I don't believe marriage is important, I can just cohabit with someone, I can live with someone?
Yeah. So times have changed a lot, but cheating is still considered a really bad thing. Cheating is still considered like, if you do it, you're at the wrath of a lot of people now. You're a cheater and you're tainted. And the reason being is because when you're cheated on, that feeling of being destroyed, of your trust being shattered, is something people can relate to as being one of the worst things.
Yeah.
But what created the environment where cheating became so easy? One of the things was there was no official commitment to that relationship in the first place. It's really interesting the way people talk about, relationship goals. And, when do you become exclusive? When are you semi-exclusive? What does being exclusive mean? And there's no real code around what it means to be a loyal, faithful. Some people, they're like, it's okay if someone looks at my other half, so long as they don't speak to her. Some people are like, it's okay if some people look and talk as long as they don't touch. And you're like, whoa, what's going on here? What is right, what is wrong?
Yeah.
But subhanAllah, when you have commitment, you have created the environment for a successful relationship. So when two people get married and they have a contract, and the Quran calls it mithaqan ghalidha, which means a very heavy, a very well-bound contract between these two people, which is witnessed by others and then celebrated in the community. Now the two have been put into a space where their relationship can grow and they can have a level of trust with each other. You can't walk out just like that. She can't just turn around and say, I don't want to be with you anymore. This is an official thing. And any rational person would see, the benefit behind that and the negatives behind casual relationships. And people, they try to rationalize it, but the fact is that every person wants trust in the relationship. Every person wants it. But how do you induce trust into a relationship? You need some formality. You need some kind of code, and this is what Islam gives us. It gives us that recipe to help create that trust.
Very good points. Let's move on, because I want to get to something which people are listening are probably going to say, it's so negative. These guys are talking about something so negative, right? Speak about something positive. I thought Ilm Feed's all about positivity, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to address certain issues, right?
Yeah.
As part of educating others. And obviously yourself as an imam who's far more experienced than myself, and a counsellor, and everyone knows that something like divorce is on the rise, and relationships, marriages are breaking up, for whatever reason that may be, right? And there's many factors which are involved in this, and I myself have seen it, and it's not any person that just has a small insight, especially in the Muslim community, right? We can talk about it in general, but if we speak about even the Muslim community, small insight, you will see that there is a huge problem. Marriages breaking up left, right, and center.
Yep.
Horror stories, people reaching out, people emailing, sending DMs. Just in very difficult, vulnerable situations. Let's maybe ask this question first as to why is it that we've got to this stage? Not that divorce was never a thing before. Divorce has always been a thing, and we know that obviously divorce is something which you can resort to. It's not like haram. You can resort to as a last option once you've gone through the procedures. But why do you think there might be different factors? But why do you think personally that divorce is on the rise and marriages are breaking up?
Divorce is definitely on the rise. According to the Office for National Statistics, in this country in 2012, the rate of divorce was around about 42%.
42%?
42%. In 2012, that was.
Wow, okay.
In 2017, there was in that 1 year alone, more than 100,000 divorces that took place in this country.
Okay.
What's really shocking, even more than that, is that the average lifespan of a marriage in the UK in 2017 is 12 and a half years. Which is shocking because it means that you have broken a marriage after spending, which is probably the most, wonderful part of your youth with this person, and maybe you had kids as well.
Yeah.
That's a bigger divorce than a divorce in the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Another shocking thing is the age that people are getting divorced at in this country is between the age of 40 and 50.
Wow, okay.
So you're thinking like...
So definitely in that age where you're definitely parents, your children are
your parents, and, why would you get divorced when you spend most of your life with this person? What is there to come after this, I mean, inshallah you can move on and do other things, but what would really motivate you? I can understand a 20-year-old saying, you know what, I'm going to cut myself loose, I'm going to go and do something else, but at that age, right, what would you do? Maybe that's just non-Muslims. But you know what? I remember one of my teachers a couple of years ago, he said, I want everyone to do a mental exercise. I want you to think about 10 people from your own circle of friends and family that got married, and then count backwards at how many got divorced. We took a minute to do that. I came up with the figure of 4 out of 10. And I was shocked to see that almost half of the audience came up with the same figure or more. Which is like, what? 50% of Muslims are getting divorced.
Wow.
Which is basically on par with what's happening happening amongst non-Muslims.
Yeah.
It is a huge problem. Everyone knows that a happy marriage with love and warmth is good not just for the couple, but for their children's mental and physical well-being. And everyone knows now, with lots of studies that show that children, if they are brought up in a broken home with neglect or abuse, they end up to have behavioral problems, educational problems, there's a predisposition to crime, etc., etc. And that's why, subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ, he highlighted the eagerness of shaitan to destroy marriage. In the authentic hadith in Sahih Muslim, Inna Iblisa yada arshahu ala al-ma. Every evening, he said, Iblis, he puts his throne on the water, meaning out there in the ocean, in the world of the jinns. Iblis comes out, and all of his soldiers, they flock towards him, trying to vie for his attention. Yeah. And the Prophet said that one of them will say, أَفَعَلْتُ كَذَا وَكَذَا, I did this really evil thing, I did this really evil thing. And shaitan will say, مَا صَنَعْتَ شَيْء, you've done nothing whatsoever. Until one of them will come and say, you know what, I never left them until I caused them to split. And at that, the Prophet says that Iblis, he says, you've done a wonderful thing. Another narration, فَيَلْتَزِمُهُ, he gets off his throne and he hugs him. Why does Iblis take so much joy in breaking a marriage? It's because of the repercussions of that. And my mum, she's been a counsellor for maybe 30 years now, dealing with couple counselling. She says that when people divorce, when couples divorce, oftentimes they divorce their children as well. What that means is that they split up, but they will use their children intentionally or unintentionally to score to basically for their own interests by turning them against the other person. Turn the kids against the husband, he turns them against the wife. And the social ills that are created from that are so numerous that Iblis, he recognizes that, if I could just destroy this one relationship, I'll create havoc in the community. And subhanAllah, one of my teachers recently, he said something quite amazing. He said that if you want unity of the ummah, focus on unity of the family. If the family are united, then we are in a better position to unite as an ummah itself.
100%.
So the question about why people are getting divorced is a lengthy one. I mean, I mentioned a few things.
Yeah.
One of them I've already mentioned, which is people don't have clarity on why they get married in the first place. Yes. So if you're clear that I got married in order to take that step towards Allah, to find greater stability, to protect myself from temptation, lust and desires, in order to have a family that I will raise to leave as a legacy that will help me in the grave, then you will be able to tolerate a lot of the difficulties that come your way when your marriage begins to go through difficult times. Yes.
I guess like that first point, just to focus on that for a second, it links in. That's the first thing that came to my mind when you mentioned the stats and when you said that it's between the age of 40 and 50 people get divorced, and we find that quite strange. But maybe it's the fact that because there was no clarity to begin with, and then there were problems in the marriage which they kind of just brushed under the carpet and got. It just gets to a stage where all of that builds up. You get to that age of 40 and it's like, you know what, I can't take any more. And then that's it. It's you end the marriage there and then. So it kind of, there is a link. There is a link, isn't it?
My mum's got this wonderful, quite wonderful, but it's about something quite negative. She's got this wonderful description of marriage problems. She says a marriage problem is like a leaking tap in a bathtub.
Yeah.
So every day, tap, 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 there's a little drop that falls into this bathtub, and it's unnoticeable because it's just one drop of water. But after a certain amount of time, it will reach the brim, and then the one drop will fall, and there will be a flood. And the beauty of that analysis is that some problems become irreversible if you leave them for too long.
Yeah.
And I think this is another reason why people are, or divorce is on the rise, that there's no communication about problems and dealing with them. And what's fascinating is in the Quran, in Surah Tahrim, Allah tells us that the Prophet, he once had a marriage problem.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, is quite reassuring for regular people like me. That if you're going through a marriage problem, you're like, hang on a minute, the Prophet actually also went through a marriage problem as well. I can read about it inside the Quran. The story goes that he told one of his wives a secret, and she leaked it to a co-wife. So it's like a breach of trust. An issue has arisen. Now the Quran tells us that the way he dealt with that, عَرَّفَ بَعْضَهُ وَأَعْرَضَ عَنْ بَعْض, that he divulged, or he told her about a part of it, and he kept another part away, meaning he communicated what the issue was, but he did it in an indirect way, which is quite amazing because it shows us, number one, that he did communicate his feelings when he saw there was a problem. A lot of people, they like to throw things under the carpet and say, it'll get better by itself. Sometimes they do, other times they don't. They only snowball and become worse. So the first thing is, look, if I see that this is a problem, let me address it. But how are you going to address it? Are you going to lose your cool? Are you going to start insulting, shouting, screaming? No. The Prophet ﷺ, he did it in a way that was indirect. As if he was kind of alluding to the fact that I know that you told someone my secret, but I would appreciate it if you hadn't done this, and your trust means a lot to me, etc., etc. So she's sitting there thinking, does he know or does he not know? Because the way he's talking about it is being very indirect. And what that does is that it prevents a person from becoming defensive. It stops the clash of egos, and it makes a person more willing to change for the other person. Even though I'm wrong, the way he's dealing with it is in such a nice, loving, respectful way. You know what? I'm not going to do that again because that's just really bad with me. So communication is one thing. The other thing is tolerance. I think my mum, she said that one of the shortest weddings she's heard of was 1 day long.
One day long?
1 day long, yeah.
Wow.
So what happened was that, they had the nikah on one day, the next day is walima on the nikah. Yeah. What happened is that the groom fashionably turned up late.
Okay.
Right? He turned up late, maybe trying to make a statement or whatever.
Okay.
So the sister's there, the sister, if she comes earlier than the guy on the wedding day, that's not a good look.
Yeah.
So what happened is that nothing was said. The next day, walima. Now the sister comes fashionably late. You are 1 hour late? I come 2 hours late. They sat on the stage, on the couch. He said, do you know why I came late? Because you turned up late yesterday. You're never going to do that to me again. The guy was so furious. He said, what? I divorce you. I don't want to be with you anymore. They got married on the walima.
Wow.
Think, oh my God. I mean, said they got divorced on the walima. I think to myself, subhanallah, what is going on here?
Oh my God.
Is literally no tolerance. And I think
Yeah.
our parents, they had that over us.
Mm.
You know, people can take it to extreme. There is a saying, my wife told me about this saying that you leave in a red suit, you come back in a coffin. Yeah, which is what the father will say to his daughter when she gets married. Basically, you go, don't come back. Okay, the only way you're gonna come back is which is extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Which obviously that leads to another problem, completely separate, which is that the stigma that's attached to a divorcee, for example. Something went wrong
Yes.
down the line, which might not even be her fault.
Yeah.
But then because of that, she has to suffer for the rest of her life. That is
Yeah.
obviously another issue, isn't it? That
this is so the opposite extreme of whatever happens, don't come back home is at the first sight of a problem. I've seen this. The daughter, she phones her mum and says, "Mum, you know what? Things not going too well. I had a bit of an argument last night." And what does mother say? "Your bed is still warm over here. Come home." Yeah. Forget about him. This is another extreme. Because now the husband has to win over the heart of his wife and his mother-in-law and the father and all the chacha and chachis that have got involved by this time as well. So my advice is, brothers, sisters, you need to learn to have a big heart. Yeah, there will be annoyances. You need to ignore them. Big things, address them. Small things, ignore them. Don't keep diaries of sins, and you have an argument saying, well, last year, March 20th of March, you said exactly, I'm going to write it down here word for word. If you chase people's mistakes, it just causes bitterness. Learn to just be tolerant, let things go. And in Arabic, they call this taghaful. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah said that 9/10 of formidable character is taghaful, which means being easygoing with people's mistakes. This is a recipe of success in every relationship, in particular marriage.
Yeah, I think so. That is a really good point about tolerance.
Yeah,
definitely a big one. I think we kind of touched on it before, which is the expectations as well. What your expectation of marriage is, and then not like expecting too much, or not expecting so much from your spouse, because again that could lead to disappointment, because they're still human beings, they've got other things to do. I had an incident a few months, actually, that literally I think 2 months after the actual nikah was done. The guy was complaining because he was like, I think I may have made the worst decision in my life.
Okay.
And we're like, okay, what's the issue? Issue was that it turns out that the girl he got married to, literally from day one, she was expecting gifts like every day. Like every day. Okay, every time you come home, I need to have a gift. And then he's like, and initially he thought, okay, I need to give gifts to my wife, not a problem. So he used to buy gifts, and then it was like, no, but I want like Gucci. I want top of the range.
Okay.
And this is like regularly, yeah? Like she's expecting top of the range stuff, brand new shoes, brand new bags, all the time. And he's like, I literally can't afford it.
Yeah.
Like I cannot afford it. I can't keep up this lifestyle. 2 months in, and he's already thinking of finishing this, ending this. Why? Because clearly there's that, she had a certain expectation.
Yeah.
And we could say this should have been maybe discussed beforehand, before you even got into marriage. You should have made things clear, iron out the details, this is what I'm like, this is what I can afford, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think that is also what I've seen is a huge thing. People expect something, or they expect their wife. The opposite has happened, where the guy has expected his wife to do this, that, come into the house and do everything, sort everything out.
Yeah.
And then when she doesn't, it's like, oh, but I expected you to do that. So that's another huge clash, I've realised.
It is. I think this is, one of those things when you're looking for a spouse, what kind of things to ask about. And one of the things you should ask about is the type of lifestyle the other person lives.
Yeah.
For a brother who wants a very homely wife. And a lot of brothers, they shouldn't be shy to admit that. They want a homely wife. Yeah. That, how do they verify that? How do they find out whether or not their wife or their wife to be or this girl will be like this?
Yeah.
Ask them, where do you spend most of your time? How much time do you spend with your family, your grandparents, your nephews, your nieces, your cousins? Do you like to go out often? The majority of your free days spent where? Those kind of questions will give you an idea as to the type of lifestyle that this sister lives.
Yeah.
This is one thing, but the other thing is in the marriage itself, you can raise expectations.
Yeah.
with communication.
Yes.
You know, you can. So, I mean, I'll tell you a very extreme story. I can change the details a little bit for confidentiality purposes. But there was a brother, he got married, and after 2 years, got divorced. And everyone's really shocked because what they saw were two people that really loved each other, and they're very close. And why did you get divorced, basically? So this person came to get some advice, and the reason why they end up getting divorced is because he said they became friends. And so I was like, what do you mean?
Became friends?
Became friends,
Okay,
yeah. It basically means that, we weren't intimate with each other. I was like, for 2 years you never slept with each other. It goes, well, what happened is, in the beginning I tried to, well, I didn't know how to. And so it never happened.
Okay.
And I thought maybe, there's something wrong with me. Now, we tried a second time.
Yeah.
And the second time, again, it didn't happen. And it didn't work. And what happened is that we just resigned ourselves to the fact that there's something wrong with us. Meaning, he thought there's something physically wrong with him. She thought there's something physically wrong with her.
Okay.
But they never spoke about it.
Right, I see.
So then they just became friends. And then their
okay.
mum was like, where's the grandchildren? Come on, man. The aunties, uncles, like, where's the children? Where's the children? And then it became too much. So they said, we just have to get divorced.
Wow.
So I was like, hang on a minute. Didn't you talk about this? They were like, no, we never spoke about it.
And
I was like,
they literally just shut that door, and
it was just a total lack of communication.
Wow.
Could have saved that marriage. So I'd advise brothers and sisters that, look, you can manage expectations, you can raise expectations. It's all down to communication.
Yeah.
As long as something which is halal and tayyib and something that is going to help you help your marriage from within the halal, nothing's off the table. Especially if your marriage is going through a difficult time.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what we're talking about is coming down to communication, like I said. It's that one key word, communication, communicating with each other, speaking to each other. Going back to one incident you mentioned earlier about, in-laws, right? This is a huge thing. In-laws is like, when you mention in-laws when it comes to marriage, it's like, oh my God. Especially on social media, it's actually, I don't know how much attention you pay, but like, something like Twitter, for example, right? Twitter's an ajib world of social media because it's not like Instagram, people posting pictures. Facebook is like general. On Twitter, you'll find people are a lot more personal because it's just words, isn't it? So they're talking about different issues, right? Things are trending and people are talking about it. So when it comes to marriage, one thing I've realized on Twitter, especially if you just, you can probably do a search and you'll find it, right? In-laws.
Okay.
It's like the death term now.
Wow.
Where people are literally saying, and these people are not even married, but they're saying like, okay, when I do get married, my in-laws, they're nothing to me.
Wow.
Or, if someone tells me I need to do something for my mother-in-law, hell no, I'm not doing it. Stuff like that. So they've already got this attitude where in-laws are like this thing, like, oh my God, I want nothing to do with them. And, in-laws are just, Zalimun, they're going to oppress me. And, they've got this negative image. So obviously when you go into a marriage like that, and already your mother-in-law, father-in-law is your enemy on your hit list, clearly nothing's going to work. If you've already made your mind up, in the Muslim community, I've realized this is it. This is what people, and obviously it's based off, there's horror stories, and clearly there are in-laws that do
a lot of them are true.
There's a lot of oppression that takes place, but because of that, for you to shut it all off now and firstly, can we just actually, since we're on the topic, can we just talk about very briefly the actual role of an in-law, like Islamically? So for example, if I were to get married, right, and then I now have a mother-in-law, father-in-law, right, what is my obligations and duties towards them? What are they to me? Are they literally like my mother and father now, my second mother and father? Like, what is that? Let's talk about that, because maybe a lot of people don't know.
Okay, so when two people get married, you create a family. Two families have come together, so they are relatives in looser way, in terms of the term being family, a looser way. They have become your family. The problem is when people become technical about these things and say, what exactly are their rights over me? What are my rights over them? When it comes to relationships, it doesn't work like that. A relationship doesn't work like, what's her right over me? I'll do that and then she has to do what. If you have a tick box mentality when it comes to relationships, you'll find that they break down very quickly.
Definitely.
A relationship is based on love, is based on rahmah. And subhanAllah, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about the man and woman, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. A very famous verse, Allah says we created between them two things. Number one, mawaddah, which translates to love, but more accurately means the show of love or affection. And secondly, rahmah. These two terms are not rights. They're not rights. They are to do with values, to do with attitudes. And if you think about it, any relationship for it to flourish, there needs to be compassion, and there needs to be some show of care, and especially in marriage, love and affection. Yep. So I don't like it when people ask me, what's her rights over me? What is her right over me? Because I say that's a wrong question. That's not the way it should work. Having said that, if someone asks me, how should I treat my in-laws? I would say that treat them with respect, with good manners, but do not let them interfere with your marriage. Yes, and this is a difficult line to
That's
follow.
it, I guess. How are we going to define what does interference mean now?
Yeah. So, first of all, how big a problem is interference in divorce rates? So, one of my teachers told me about one of the great judges in Syria, Sheikh Ali Antantawi, rahimahullah. He's one of the most formidable scholars of the 20th century. He became a judge in the Syrian courts, and then he moved to become the head, the leading judge in the country. And he oversaw family problems, family cases, family law for most of that time. He said that from his experience, 40% of all divorces are created because of interference by extended family.
40%.
40%.
Okay, that is a big number.
Yeah, 40%. So this is a person who's got expert insight into this, and he's talking about this. So it is a huge thing. Also, the Prophet ﷺ, he himself was a father-in-law to Ali. Ali was his cousin. He raised him, so he's almost like a son. And then Ali marries the daughter of the Prophet, Fatima, radiallahu ta'ala anha, and now he becomes the son-in-law of the Prophet ﷺ. There's a few interesting narrations about the marriage between the two of them. One says that one day Fatima and Ali had an argument, and the Prophet came to visit his daughter. He comes inside and he sees Ali is missing. He says, "Where's Ali?" And Fatima says, "We had an argument and he's left." Right? So when you say, "Oh, you have an argument, you sleep on the couch." He wasn't sleeping on the couch. He was sleeping on the floor in the masjid. So the Prophet, he goes into the masjid, he sees Ali laying on the floor. There's no carpet, so there's just soil. His top qamis has come off, so there's like dust over his body. And the Prophet walks up to him and says, "Qum ya Aba Turab." He says, "Stand up, O father of dust." And he starts to pat him down. Now, subhanAllah, why I find fascinating about that narration is that he's a father-in-law. He just heard that my daughter's upset because this one here said something to upset her, right? But he didn't go up to him and start interrogating him. What did you say to my daughter? You sleeping over here? Why? Tell me what happened. I want to know every single thing. And how are you going to make up to her? Nothing. He just said, "Stand, the father of dust." And Ali would later years, he would say, my favorite nickname is the father of dust. So he reminisces about that experience as being a positive one. Yes. In another narration, Fatima radiallahu ta'ala comes to the Prophet and says, she complains about her hands becoming very coarse, dry skin, because of the sheer workload she has to do at home. She asked for a servant to be given to her from some of the Baytul Mal that the Prophet has, is in charge of. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "I can, but I'll tell you something better. When you go to sleep, say Subhanallah 33 times, Alhamdulillah 33 times, Allahu Akbar 34 times." And she accepted the advice. The point of this narration is, couldn't he have said, "Why is your husband allowing you to work this much? Why doesn't he do this himself? Why isn't he looking after you so your hands don't become all dried and cut up?" He didn't interfere in their marriage. He wanted to give them the space so they could work things out themselves. That doesn't mean that if your daughter comes to you and says, "My husband is treating me really badly, do something," and you say, "No, it's your problem." That's not what we're talking about. That's extreme. But we're talking about, don't pry into what's happening in your daughter's marriage. Because by doing that, you may actually create problems, because a problem between two people has now become a problem between 3, 4, 5, and whoever else finds out. There's always the auntie with a satellite as well, so she just pings it up there and then everyone finds out about what's going on. It's just become a problem out of control. So be respectful, be kind, but don't let people dictate what happens in your marriage.
So basically, as someone who is an in-law, a father-in-law, or a mother-in-law, like I don't know the own feed demographics. I don't know how many mother-in-law and father-in-laws are listening. Right? Usually, it's the younger generation. But if that is so, what we're saying is that don't interfere too much.
Yeah.
But then coming back to the original question is that, do you, like, what is your then, like, do you ask any questions at all? Do you try to not get involved, 'Cause I guess interfering is one thing, getting involved, I don't know if you see what I'm trying to say, like, do they just completely get their daughter married or son married and like, khalas, that's it, you guys do whatever you want kind of thing? Is it like that, or is there some role that they would play?
You give them the space,
Space,
you give them the space and intentionally make sure that they have a chance to develop that trust and understanding by themselves, independent of your input. And I think for mothers it proves more difficult than for fathers. But they must realize that you're not doing your son any favors, by prying in their marriage and trying to find out what's going on and giving your own take on why she does what she does. Having said that, as a fatherly figure, as a motherly figure, just finding out how your son is doing is just a normal part of conversation.
Of course,
and there's obviously nothing wrong with that. There's a joke, subhanAllah, about the extreme understanding of in-laws. So a person asked a sheikh, or a sister asked a sheikh, what do I do if I miss my in-laws? He said, wallah, reload and try again. As if there's no way you can think of your in-laws in a positive way. But this is something we need to step away from. We can't be that negative to the point that, a lot of sisters, they say, before getting married, do I have to live with your parents? Do I have to live with my in-laws? And though that is a legitimate question, to be so sensitive on this one issue is not helpful, especially when, let's be honest, it's becoming increasingly more difficult for sisters to find a husband. There's more sisters than brothers, and there's a whole set of other problems as well. But the fact is that, there needs to be a bit more mature understanding about extended family and trying to work with what is presented before you.
So like on a real because you're dealing with these issues, so do you feel like it is a huge thing? Even we said that stat from Ali At-Tantawi rahimahullah, but like today in the UK, or is it a huge thing still?
I'm shocked,
like interference from in-laws?
I mean, there's an incident with a brother. He's got married and he doesn't have money, so he has to live with his parents for the foreseeable future. A lot of mothers, they struggle to let go of their sons. So the son has got married, but because there's another woman in the picture, the mother unintentionally, she puts pressure on that marriage or causes issues between the two of them. And this one brother, he said to me that, since I've been married to my mother, she removed the door of my room.
Whoa.
She removed the door of my room. I was like, what?
That's extreme.
He goes, because, she doesn't want us to be, together. And to this level. Crazy. And I was like, wow. But it's unfortunately, it does happen. Where in-laws, they are unfortunately falling prey to these kind of misbehavior, and they regret it because if your daughter gets divorced, she's going to come back to your home, and then people are going to start asking questions. It's been 5 years since we divorced. Why didn't she get married again? And you're like, because it's a taboo about divorcees, and especially for women getting married again, it's just almost out of the picture. So that type of life, no one predicted it, but it's a reality. For women that get divorced, the future unfortunately is not bright, and that's a factor which we need to be mature enough to take into consideration when thinking about divorce. What is life going to be like after divorce? Is it going to be really that good? Am I going to be free? Am I going to be able to live my life happily, or am I going to put myself in a situation where I'm going to be stuck in another way? Now there's the element of temptation and lust and desire, all of these things going around me. Am I able to protect myself? These are some things that people need to consider.
Because we spoke about how in-laws kind of interfere, but you also have the other kind of extreme, we could call it, which is that the husband and wife themselves, they go home and blab everything. They blab everything out. They're like, oh, this is what's happening in my marriage. So again, there's no interference. Like the parents, they're just getting on with it. And it's the actual son or the daughter going home and saying, or calling them up and saying, oh, by the way, this is what happened. We had another argument. And that is also wrong, isn't it? Because then it's like, not only are you, mentioning something that's personal that you should be dealing with, but now you can't blame your parents if they're trying to get involved,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
or worse than that, on social media.
Oh my God, yeah.
Telling
There's
people
that
about
as
your
well.
other half on social media and intimacies and this
There's
and the
that as
other.
well.
It's really bad. The biggest, the most precious bond of trust is between the husband and wife, and people have to be very sensitive about what they say about their other half.
Yeah.
It should be on a needs basis. If there is a need to tell someone about something personal, okay, you may have a basis, but otherwise, don't speak about your other half. And even, alhamdulillah, if Allah has blessed you with a sound, happy marriage, there's so many people that are haters out there. There's so much negativity. There's so much hasad and ayn. I recommend people, don't promote your happy marriage. And this is like against Instagram culture, right? So couple goals and everything else. People want to take pictures of each other when they're on holiday, eating together, and it may even be fake. But even if it's real, you're setting yourself up for lots of problems, because people out there, they're suffering. They don't have that. They don't have it, and they wish they could have it. They crave for it, and then shaitan, just turns that into jealousy, and then you start feeling the effects of that in your own relationship.
Yeah, I mean, so one question that I had, which is, let's say there is now, and naturally there's going to be arguments, and there's going to be things kicking off in the home, right, between the husband and the wife. So what would your advice be? Let's say you're now regularly starting to see a few conflicts now, a few problems occurring. Yep. What would your advice be? What steps should you take before, for example, the guy just gets so angry he just says the words of divorce? And a lot of the times they regret it later. They come back, they come to the Imam. Sheikh, you know what? I didn't actually mean it. I was angry. I said it 3 times. Yeah, it's the same.
As if anyone gets divorced with
exactly
love on their mind, Oh, I love you so much.
So before he gets to that, or before the girl does feel like, I'm just going to go back home to my parents' house where I was happy before, right? So before any of that, what would you say like a sensible decision would be for a husband or a wife to make?
So the first step is always to sit down and talk about things. And this study has shown that the first few sentences of a difficult conversation can dictate the outcome of that conversation. So, for example, you found out something that your other half has done which really has angered you, frustrated you, and now you want to address it. So what should you do? Sit down and don't start off the conversation like, how could you do that to me? I left my first wife because of the same thing. Now, the next few sentences most probably are not going to lead to a positive outcome.
It's playing the blame game immediately, basically. It's like just pinning the blame straight.
But if you had started with, I know you didn't mean to hurt me, because you love me, I love you, but what you said, it really did hurt me, And now that conversation can go down a path of reconciliation. One of the amazing things in the Quran, Allah in Surat An-Nisa spoke about marriage difficulties and breakdown and the steps that people need to take to resolve them. And one of the interesting things in that passage, Allah says, إِن يُرِيدَ إِصْلَاحًا يُوَفِّقِ اللَّهُ بَيْنَهُمَا. That if both of them truly want to reconcile, Allah will make it happen. Which is amazing, that Allah will take ownership of your marriage and make it work out, so long as you're being genuine with each other, that whatever happened, I still want this to succeed. I want it to work out for my benefit, for your benefit, for the benefit of the children. And inshallah, if you come at it with that attitude, things can end up in maybe even a better place than where they started off. So this is the first step, to sit down and communicate what you want to say. The second thing is, if you cannot resolve the problem, and it's a significant problem, don't be too shy to get professional help. You need to see a couple counsellor, see one. I know many cases where people, they thought their problems were unresolvable. After seeing a specialist, after seeing a professional, they managed to work things out. And many times
it does help, because some people think, it's like some random person, I need to go sit down and talk about my problems.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was one of those. I was that guy.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I was like, counselling, psychiatrist. It's about Quran and Sunnah. What is this all about? So, but then because my mum, she's involved in counselling. I think it happened. It kind of dawned on me, the significance on it, when a friend of mine, he was going through marriage problems which I didn't know about. He's actually, he's a friend of mine, and he was actually getting counselling from my own mum. with his wife
Yeah.
for over a period of 6 months. And the really amazing thing is that he was actually coming to my house with his wife to get that counselling, and I had no idea.
Right.
Yeah. So then after things got resolved, we went out for a meal, and he said, "You know what? After Allah, if it wasn't for your mother, I'd be divorced right now." Wow. I was like, "Where did that come from?" He goes, "Yeah, I've been getting counselling, and I had anger management problems, and I realised that a lot of it is to do with my childhood and my parents when they got divorced, and I was really angry. And when I heard about how it can affect you, and I was given some practical tips. Alhamdulillah, and that was one like a friend, so someone who's on my level, thinks like me, and then I was like, okay, this thing is serious. This is not one of those hocus pocus. There might be some people out there that are not doing it properly, but there is substance behind that. And my advice, especially to brothers, do not be shy to get that help, because what's on the line is your marriage. And the other thing is that when you get divorced, without trying to exhaust effort to make it right, the next marriage you get into, you'll always have a question mark in your mind. What was the issue before? Was it me? Was it her? And then that will play on your mind in the next marriage, and that may even ruin it. So at least when you've exhausted your effort to make things work and then got divorced, you got peace of mind that, between me and Allah, I know I did my best. I got help from other people. I tried to work out myself. It didn't happen, so I ended it with a divorce. Now if I move on, I can move on knowing where I stood.
Yeah, and especially like you said, men can be shy. It's kind of in our nature not to, to kind of reserve your emotions. Not
it's that macho look, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. So and when it comes
they
to
wear
marriage,
pink t-shirts all the time.
But so when it comes to marriage, it's like you can't do that, right? You have to obviously, share what you're feeling with your spouse, or if it did come to counselling, then not to kind of shy away from it, and to at least
there's benefit. There's tremendous benefit. Just talking to someone about your issues.
Exactly.
But to do it early as well. To do it early. A lot of people, they let it linger. Usually when a brother comes to me and says I've got marriage problems, what he really means is I'm gonna get divorced tomorrow. Can I get your help? And you're like, Habibi, why didn't you come a few months ago when these things are starting up? So you need to do it. You need to keep your eye on the ball, and when you need help, reach out. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Definitely. So obviously, like I said, a lot of people could say we're talking about negative things, but these are important issues. Like we said, you mentioned the statistics is real. It's a growing trend. It's on the rise, and that's why it's important for people to be educated. I think as well, for anyone who's not married, obviously there's that important element of being educated about marriage before you even go into it, because again, there's this whole romanticized idea, I'm gonna just get married and I'm gonna live this life. But if you don't know, like you said like well, forget counselling, it's all about Quran and Sunnah. But there is that element, like you should at least have some basics of what the Quran, what have we been taught as Muslims about marriage, how should we be with our spouses. I always mention that everyone's looking for the perfect ideal spouse, but no one's thinking about how I can become the perfect ideal spouse. Everyone's looking for, and when you ask them, I want someone who's praying, and I want someone who's this and that, and you're like, so are you praying, bro? No, I'm still working on it, don't worry.
No, she'll make me pray.
Yeah, exactly, that's the other one. It's like, no, she'll wake me up for Fajr. It's like, come on, man, just get a grip, like, educate yourself a bit. So that is also important. But let's, obviously, coming to the end of the podcast, let's talk about something more positive, which is, alhamdulillah, on the other hand, there's many marriages that are successful and people are, mashallah, happy. How can we get to that? That's obviously what I want to end with. What are the ingredients, so to speak, of a happy, successful marriage? What would you say, Sheikh?
I think the marriage you should look at as the gateway to your legacy, because through this bond, Allah has opened the doors for so much opportunity of khair. If you just think about your children, one of my teachers, you'd say that make sure you have a competition between you and your wife. The first one to teach your child Surat Al-Fatiha. Whoever gets there first will have the ajr of that child saying it for the rest of their life, and if they teach their children, the ajr that will bring. So when that relationship comes together, something tremendous has happened, because from now on in, every good that is generated because of this relationship and has an effect on later generations, a copy of that is going to keep on adding to your account when you're in the grave. And then on the Day of Judgment, how many generations will come because of your marriage? Every single one of them that has grown up and died on Iman, and all the actions that came from it will be traced back to that decision you made, that marriage. You know, and that is an untold amount of reward that awaits you. And that's even a motivation to try harder in your marriage to make it work and successful, just so that, you know, your children flourish in terms of their faith and their character, and then you can tap into that reward. But on a personal level, even if you look at it like, I'm a businessman, you know, time is money, so I need to make as much money as possible, and I need to, you know, excel in my business endeavors. Your marriage is probably crucial to your success in business, because if you have a problem at home, it's going to cloud your thought, your judgment. You're not going to be able to focus when you're at work, and so you're going to see the effects of that in your own business. So this one relationship, if you can keep it, you know, in a good place, you will find that your productivity in life will increase as well. You know, they say about Imam Ahmad, subhanAllah, that after many years his wife passed away, and then he got married the next day. The next day he was looking for someone to get married, and they were like, yeah, Imam, your wife just passed away yesterday. You're getting married the next day. And he's like, that woman, she helped me to become who I am today.
Wow.
I needed the support of her. Without that support, who knows? So in his marriage, he saw, you know, the how it propelled him to become a successful human being in his own right as a scholar. And that works both ways. You know, for a sister, you know, she wants to be successful in every aspect of her life. She will need to work on her marriage. She need to give importance to that. And when it gets good, you will see it flows, you know, in other aspects of your life. So mental well-being, physical well-being, you know, all of these things, they are directly connected to this one relationship. It needs to be, if it's worked on, wallahi, it's the best life. It is the best life you can have. If you have a sound marriage, you are living the best life. And this is one of the biggest blessings that Allah can bestow upon you. Ask Allah Jalla wa to give it to every single one of us.
Ameen.
May Allah protect us from the wiswas of shaitan.
Ameen. Thank you for that advice. I had one last quick question, just kind of bouncing off this whole you know, secrets to a happy marriage. What would you say about romance, keeping the romance again? Because obviously it's a, you know, coming back to expectations, it's obviously a natural expectation. You want to be romantic with your spouse. What does Islam say about being romantic? And again, do you have any tips to maintain that throughout the years and not just within the honeymoon period?
Yeah, one advice I give is that every month, every 6 weeks, have a dinner and a Mahasabha session with your wife. What does this mean? It means that you take your wife somewhere nice, not chicken and chips, something a bit nicer than that. And the phones are switched off, nobody else is there. Children, if you have children, leave them with someone to take care of. And you have a nice meal, you enjoy each other's company. And then you speak about the things that you want to achieve in the coming month, in terms of your worship, in terms of your character. And the other person who's listening, he's just there to help solidify your goals and to celebrate your success. So it's to be like, you know, this month I really want to increase on my hifz of Quran. I've been slacking, you know, hopefully maybe Surat Taghabun, I'll memorize it during the next month. And you'll be like, that's a fantastic idea. You know what, every day just put 15 minutes aside. I'll take care of the kids for that time. You just do your hifz. And, you know, you'll achieve it, no problem. And you did that last year as well, and it worked really well for you. And the same for the husband as well, that he talks about his achievements that he wants to do. And then this way of evaluating is very important, because no one knows you like your wife. No one knows you like your husband. So they can be real with you. Come on, that's unrealistic. No, come on, you can do much more than that. A few years ago, you were praying tahajjud, you know, what are you struggling now for? You know, so, and that's a romantic thing as well. Which wife wouldn't like a husband every month he's going to take me out?
Exactly.
You know, people appreciate that experience. There's a narration about the Prophet ﷺ that when he got married to Aisha radiyallahu anha, that there was a bowl of milk and he presented it to her to drink. So she drank from it, and then when he took it back, he asked, and which part did you drink from? And when she pointed to it, he turned it to his own lips and drank from the same part. Which is a bit hot under the collar, to be honest, if you think about it. That's a very romantic gesture. Yes, this is the way of our Prophet ﷺ. There's nothing wrong, nothing, you know, in being romantic. Some people, they aren't romantic because they don't know how to. People genuinely say that. I never saw my mum and dad ever hold hands. I never saw mum and dad ever kiss. I don't know how to show that affection. Go online, find a course, learn how to be romantic. You know, don't stay like that. Recognize your problem. Go seek some help. There's lots of things you can read and do courses, inshallah, halal ones, to make you more romantic.
Exactly. No, I think that's a really good positive end to the show. Alhamdulillah. Nice practical tips to take away. But Ustadh Asim, Jazakallah khair, honestly. I really enjoyed the discussion.
I enjoyed it.
And obviously, in terms of what we discuss is about marriage and love hearts and stuff like that. But you've actually got a book coming out, inshallah, soon, which is known as The Heart of the Quran.
Yes.
Which is a classical tafsir on Surah Yasin, I believe, right?
Yes.
When are we expecting that to come out? What are we expecting in this book?
So, alhamdulillah, I've been working on this book for a long time. My personal interest is tafsir, but I noticed that people can't connect with classical tafsir works because the language, because, you know, it's something a bit distant in terms of the terms that are used. So I went for Surah Yasin and I researched the classical tafsir, but I didn't put it in an easy to understand English language, complete with some diagrams, illustrations, or tables, all these kind of neat things that people can engage with, and made it into a book, alhamdulillah. Should be coming out in February next year, inshallah.
Inshallah, look forward to it. Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you once again, may Allah bless you. And of course, all of our viewers and listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you benefited from this, inshallah. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and on iTunes, and drop a comment below, maybe leave some tips as well, how you think that we can work on marriage, any marriage advice that you have, any tips that you have from your own experiences, and also let us know what other topics you would want us to discuss on this show in the future, inshallah. From your host Shabbir, from Ustadh Asim Khan and the rest of the team, we will see you next time. Keep us in your du'as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.